breaking news right now. Brand new information just in regarding Congressman Matt Gaetz and his political aspirations here in the state of Florida. CBS News Miami's Jim DeFede asked him about a potential 2026 gubernatorial run. Jim, what do you have to say?
One of the questions that has been open is, where does Donald Trump stand on the move to oust Kevin McCarthy? When I taped this interview with Matt Gaetz on Thursday, we had not heard from the former president. So I asked Gaetz if he spoke to the former president in advance about his plans to unseat the speaker.
I think the former president is traveling around. I don't know if he'll be at Mar-a-Lago or Bedminster. I do have plans to campaign with him next week, pending, of course, what's going on in the speaker contest. I'll be here to cast my vote for that one way or the other. But
have you spoken to him? Have you spoken to him about?
I talked to the former president almost every day. Spoke to him last night, as a matter of fact. He's been very encouraging of my policy goals of getting a balanced budget, putting downward pressure on spending. And, President Trump was upset that Speaker McCarthy poorly negotiated the debt limit deal and poorly negotiated the continuing resolution. President Trump's a pretty harsh critic when it comes to negotiation. My criticism of Kevin McCarthy is more driven by his inability to follow the Budget Control Act of 1974, which demands our spending bills be on time, on target, and he'd promised us a balanced budget that he never delivered. I think his exact words, Jim, were, "Do what you have to do." And that was enough of a blessing for me. I'm not running for governor. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And I think I'm having a big impact to try to break the fever of governing by omnibus bill and continuing resolution. I'm making no plans to run for governor. I have no plans to run for governor. I'm doing this job. And 3 years from now, Jim, frankly, I hope we still have a country, because U.S. News says that the #1 economic trend of 2023 is de-dollarization. And my biggest concern is, between now and 2026, we may lose the dollar as the reserve currency, which would crush working class Americans. It would crush seniors and savers, who I know are a big part of the viewership in South Florida. And so I think we've got to focus on the here and now. We've got to immediately right the ship. In 3 years, I'm sure there's other stuff that'll be going on, but I'm right here, right now, doing this job, and that's all I'm planning to do. Honestly, I'm full of optimism and positivity, because right now we have two terrific candidates for House Speaker in our current whip, Steve Scalise, and in one of my personal mentors and heroes, Jim Jordan, who chairs the Judiciary Committee. So there are some raw feelings and emotions, because, folks are doing their hand-wringing and bedwetting over the end of Kevin McCarthy's speakership. But I think we need to look forward. We need to have a budget. We need single subject spending bills. We need to put downward pressure on the spending that's causing so much inflation. And if we do that, the House of Representatives will be a stronger institution next week. Well, Jim, I guess my reaction would be, I don't work for those people. I work for the Floridians who elected me to the United States Congress. And while in Washington, D.C., I guess I'm an unpopular guy, my job is to ensure that the American experience is able to persist. And if we have a $33 trillion debt facing $2.2 trillion annual deficits, and if all these folks in Washington, D.C. want to continue to drive up spending so that they can keep taking lobbyist and special interest money to convert into favors, that's just not going to sit well with me. I'm the only Republican in the entire United States Congress who takes no donations from lobbyists or political action committees. And the reason these people are so upset is because the way the speakership has worked under both Republicans and Democrats is that the speakers collect a huge sum of special interest money, and then they dole that out to members in exchange for favors. I have disrupted that economy by removing Kevin McCarthy, and now I think we can have a more just, honest, open, and faithful public service ethic in the Congress that puts the people over the special interests. Well, I was pretty effective this week when I was able to do something that hadn't been done in America's history to try to restore some sense of fiscal sanity to the House by getting a leader who's willing to follow the law. I may be a pariah, Jim, but you shouldn't be a pariah for just trying to get people to follow the law. The law since 1974 says that the United States of America is supposed to have a budget, and then nested within that budget, single subject spending bills that fund our agencies of government. But since 1996, we have been governed by revolving continuing resolution and omnibus spending bill. And that disallows the type of programmatic analysis of how our government spends money that could actually put downward pressure on spending. When the lawmakers in this country just take one up or down vote on funding every disparate agency of government at once, there's no real chance to tweeze out the things that are not efficacious or helpful to the American people. I spoke with Kevin McCarthy about our defense bill. I care a lot about national defense. I'm on the Armed Services Committee, and we are currently in negotiations with the United States Senate about Yeah, I informed the speaker that he needed to come into compliance with the agreement that he made in January, or he would face a motion to vacate. And his response was sort of a profane-laced tirade that wasn't particularly productive. I do believe that Kevin McCarthy tried to signal to the ethics committee that if they turned up the heat on me, that would help him create leverage. The bottom line, Jim, is I am the most investigated man in the entire United States Congress. I have been cleared by the DOJ, the FBI, the Federal Elections Commission, so I fear no investigation. That was simply something that Kevin McCarthy tried to use as leverage, but that was pathetic and sad and sort of a sideshow. The fundamental issue here is the budget, single subject spending bills, and not losing the dollar as the global reserve currency. I am laser focused on that. Well, he's not failing as our governor. I'm a big fan of Ron DeSantis. I was very involved in his first campaign. I served as one of the chairs of his transition into office. Ron DeSantis is a bright, dynamic, thoughtful leader. He's brilliant, but he's not quite as dynamic as President Trump on a national campaign. And so my support for President Trump definitely was probably the catalyst that changed my relationship with Governor DeSantis. But I'm going to be the biggest fan of Ron DeSantis when he returns to Florida to serve out his final 2 years as governor. I look forward to working with him to advance our state's priorities. And, it's just a preference, much like in the speaker's race, to be honest with you. In the speaker's race, I like Jim Jordan and I like Steve Scalise. At the end of the day, I'll have to make a choice based on their specific vision. I like Ron DeSantis. I like Donald Trump. But it's Trump's dynamism and vision, and I think his real determination to try to root out some of the most corrupt elements of Washington, D.C. that led me to that choice. Many times I told him, I told Ron, look, you're going to be president one day, but in politics, if you get too far in front of the wave, it's like surfing. Sometimes the wave can crash on you and you don't quite catch it for ultimate velocity. Well, I wasn't working with Democrats. I actually expected them to vote against Kevin McCarthy for free, which it turns out they did. But the yellow brick road of working with Democrats was actually designed, constructed, and paved by Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy worked with Democrats to pass a debt limit bill that just ended the debt limit until January of 2025, greenlighting whatever debt the Biden administration wanted to accrue. That's driving the very inflation that means that in 99% of American counties right now, the average American cannot buy a home. We are seeing interest rates increase so much that people are having to pay thousands of dollars more for the exact same living conditions. Kevin McCarthy contributed to that process. I think that going to a speaker, Jim Jordan or a Steve Scalise, will liberate us from it.
You can see my full interview with Matt Gaetz this Sunday on Facing South Florida, and more all day on the CBS News Miami stream and cbsmiami.com. I'm Jim DeFede. Have a good day.